On the distant world of Zara, the alien queen ruled from a vast palace of black stone. Her throne sat at the center of a great hall lit by pale blue torches. For centuries, her people spoke in hushed tones of the challenge she laid before any visitor: spend one night beneath her roof. Rumor said no one had ever stayed until dawn. Every corner of Zara's capital whispered fear. Merchants packed their goods and fled before sunset. Soldiers on patrol felt their hearts pound as they passed the palace gates. Even seasoned pilots refused to land their ships once word of the Queen's dare spread across star lanes. They spoke of strange lights in the windows and how the walls seemed to hum with living power. At midday, the Queen's voice echoed through the city. "Come," she called to the galaxy, "and test your courage. Prove your strength, stay until sunrise, and you will earn my favor." The tone was calm, but the weight of her words pressed on every ear. Across star charts, her message appeared as a beacon of both pride and warning. On hundreds of worlds, people shook their heads. "It is suicide," they said. No human or alien could survive one night. Broadsheets printed the Queen's promise in bold letters. Holovids replayed scenes of empty halls and guards who refused to return after their shifts. Zara's mystery deepened with every fearful whisper. Far from those distant stars, on Earth, Captain Mira Patel listened to the news broadcast. She sat in her quarters aboard the survey ship Horizon. The screen showed the Queen's face, a striking figure with pale skin and dark, thoughtful eyes. Mira felt her pulse quicken. She remembered the stories of human bravery from old Earth myths. A challenge like this called to something deep inside her. Mira stood and paced the cabin. She thought of her training, the long nights she had spent alone on remote stations. She thought of her sister's words: "Humans never back down from a test." A quiet fire lit in her heart. Without another thought, she tapped her comm link. "Horizon to Earth Command," she said. "I volunteer to accept the Alien Queen's challenge." Within minutes, orders arrived. Engineers readied her shuttle for launch. Crew members whispered both awe and concern. No one had tried this before. Yet they knew Mira's steady mind and firm hand. They loaded life support packs, extra power cells, and a small translator device. All would watch to see if a human could succeed where all others had failed. As the shuttle rose into the night sky, Mira looked back at Earth's glow. She felt calm and ready. Ahead of her lay the unknown halls of Zara's palace. She did not know what waited behind its black gates, but she carried human hope and a promise to change the stories of fear, one night at a time. Mira's shuttle glided down onto the landing pad. The world below was a sea of black stone under two bright moons. The air felt thin and cold against her skin. When the doors hissed open, pale light spilled out onto the ground. Mira paused at the threshold and took a slow breath. She adjusted her pack and stepped forward. Tonight, she would face the palace alone. A small escort of Zara's royal guards waited beside the pad. They were tall and slender, with smooth pale skin and long, graceful fingers. Their eyes were sharp and unreadable. One guard moved close and touched a scanner on her suit. A soft beep echoed in her ear, and her translator came to life. Words flowed into her mind in the Queen's ancient tongue. Mira bowed her head and followed. They passed through massive iron gates that closed behind them with a heavy thud. No birds sang here. No wind stirred. Only the sound of her boots on cold stone. Along the path, high walls rose like silent watchers. Strange symbols were carved into every block. Each symbol glowed with a soft blue light. It felt as if the palace itself was alive, watching her every move. Inside, great pillars stood like sentinels in a vast corridor. Pale blue torches burned at the tops of each column. Shadows danced along the walls. Mira's heart beat faster, but she kept her steps steady. She studied the soaring ceiling, so high it vanished into darkness. Every footstep echoed back, making the quiet seem deeper and more ancient than any ship she had known. At the end of the corridor, the guards led her into a wide antechamber. A marble fountain sat in the center, dry and silent. Carved at its base was the image of the alien queen, her wings spread like a guardian's arms. Mira paused by the fountain's edge and touched the smooth stone. The cool surface reminded her of mountain springs back on Earth. She closed her eyes and took 3 deep breaths, thinking of her sister's smile and all who believed in human courage. When she opened her eyes, she felt a surge of calm. She straightened her shoulders and brushed a stray lock of hair from her face. The guards moved on, and she followed them through another grand doorway. Starlight patterns danced on the walls, like tiny comets frozen in time. Mira watched them drift in gentle arcs. They whispered secrets she could almost hear, but there was no time for wonder. Ahead stood a pair of massive bronze doors, towering above her head. Intricate carvings showed the queen in full glory, wings unfurled and eyes sharp with command. The corridor fell into a hush as Mira stepped closer. She pressed her palm to the cool metal and felt a thrill of both fear and hope. This moment would test her in ways she could not yet imagine. With one last steady breath, Mira nodded to the guards. They gave a slight bow in return. Slowly, the bronze doors began to open, their hinges groaning like ancient beasts. A soft light spilled out into the corridor. Mira squared her shoulders and stepped forward, leaving the safety of the path behind. Inside, the dark hall lay waiting. Dawn would tell if she could keep her promise, a promise to dare the night with the alien queen. Mira stepped into the grand hall and paused at the threshold. The room was vast, with a floor of polished white marble and walls carved from black stone that rose into shadow. Pale blue torches flickered along the sides, casting soft light on tall pillars. At the far end, a dais held a throne of dark crystal. As she walked forward, her boots made a soft echo. Her heart raced, but her face stayed calm. Mira had trained for this moment. She looked up at the throne and saw the alien queen seated there. The queen was taller than any human, with smooth silver skin and eyes like polished onyx. Her shoulders were draped in a cloak of fine feathers that caught the torchlight. The queen's gaze met Mira's without a flicker of surprise. She spoke once, and her voice filled the hall like a low song. "Human," she said, "you have come to test yourself." Each word was clear and even. Mira dipped into a respectful bow. "I honor your challenge, Your Majesty," she said, her voice steady in the quiet hall. A murmur ran through the guards lining the walls, but the queen held up a slender hand. "Rise," she said. "Tonight, the palace shall be your home. You may walk its halls and learn its secrets. At dawn, stand upon that dais and prove your resolve." Mira nodded and straightened. She felt a surge of pride and fear. To spend one night here was no simple feat. The queen rose smoothly from her throne, her cloak of feathers trailing like water behind her. She walked down the steps, each movement precise and graceful. When she reached Mira, she stood close enough that Mira could feel a cool breeze from the queen's cloak. "Fear is natural," the queen said, her voice gentle but firm. "Yet you stand without it. For that, you earn my respect." She paused and studied Mira's face. "But respect alone will not guide you through the night. Trust only your mind and your courage." With a slight bow of her head, the queen turned and walked away. Mira watched her go, noticing the quiet confidence in every step. When the queen reached the far end of the hall, the heavy doors swung closed without sound. The torches dimmed for a moment and then flared again, leaving Mira alone. Silence settled around her like a heavy cloak. She turned slowly, studying every carving and symbol on the walls. Strange shapes formed constellations of unknown stars. She felt both wonder and unease. A narrow corridor branched off to the left, lit by torches so pale they seemed almost white. Another path led right, where faint whispers echoed from unseen rooms. Mira took a steadying breath. She remembered the queen's words, "Trust her mind and courage." With her translator humming softly at her ear, she chose the left corridor and stepped forward. Behind her, the grand hall fell into silence once more. Ahead lay mysteries she must face alone, and a night that would change the course of two worlds. Mira stepped into the narrow corridor. The walls here were smoother than the grand hall's rough stone. Pale torches glowed at even intervals. Their light felt soft, almost like moonlight. From somewhere ahead, she heard faint whispers. They sounded like voices speaking an old language, but her translator only caught fragments. Her heart beat fast, but she stood tall and kept walking. As she moved deeper, the corridor seemed to shift around her. One moment, she saw a doorway on the left. The next, it was gone. A shadow flickered at her side, but when she turned, there was nothing. She paused and placed a hand on the wall. The stone was cool and steady. Mira closed her eyes for a moment and breathed in the slow rhythm she had learned in her training. She knew fear could trick the mind. She would not let it. A soft hum drew her to a side alcove. There, a circle of symbols glowed on the floor. Each symbol looked like a star or comet. In the center lay a small crystal. It pulsed with pale blue light. Mira knelt beside it and studied the shapes. The translator whispered that this was a test of memory. She must recall something true from her past. She thought of her sister's laugh, the sound of winds on Earth's hills, the taste of tea at dawn. She placed her hand on the crystal and spoke one of those memories aloud. The symbol beneath her glowed brighter and then faded. She felt a warm surge of relief. Ahead, the corridor opened into a low chamber. Soft light poured from a high window of frosted glass. In the center stood a tall pillar carved with star maps. Each map moved like shifting sands. Mira circled the pillar, tracing her fingers along the carved lines. A riddle appeared in glowing script. Find the path where two suns dance, and night brings hope, not fear. Follow light through silent halls, until the answer is clear. Mira's brow furrowed. Two suns. On Earth, she knew sunset came after dawn. But here, two moons ruled the sky. She thought of the space station orbiting Zara, where twin sunrises filled her view. She remembered the warm gold light that followed cold night. She tapped 2 points on the map that glowed faintly. The map shifted, and a hidden door slid open. Beyond the door lay a small gallery. The floor was made of polished obsidian that reflected her image. Along the walls, images shimmered in midair. She saw herself as a child, playing under a cloudy sky. She saw herself standing alone on a distant planet's edge, looking for new life. Each memory felt vivid and real. Her throat tightened, but she held her ground. The final image showed her here, in Zora's palace, facing the unknown. She nodded to herself and stepped forward. At the far end of the gallery, another pair of bronze doors stood half open. Beyond them, she could glimpse the throne room's pale torches and high pillars. She sensed the queen's presence watching her progress. Mira straightened her shoulders and took a steady breath. She had passed 3 trials in less than an hour, but the night was still young, and greater tests surely waited ahead. With calm resolve, she crossed the threshold into the next chamber, ready for what would come. Mira stepped through the half-open bronze doors into a chamber unlike any she had seen. The room was wide and empty, save for a deep chasm that split the floor in two. Pale blue light spilled from hidden panels high on the walls, revealing a narrow stone bridge with only 3 planks spanning the gap. Below, darkness seemed alive, as if the pit itself waited to swallow any who fell. She paused at the edge. Her heart beat fast, and she remembered the queen's words, "Trust her mind and courage." Mira took a slow breath and looked back toward the hallway. The way out was closed by the bronze doors. Forward was the only choice. Her boots touched the first plank. It felt solid beneath her weight, but she moved carefully, 1 foot at a time. The wind from the chasm stirred her hair. Each plank creaked softly. Mira tightened her grip on her pack straps and kept her eyes on the far side. At the halfway mark, the second plank shifted under her step. She froze, then steadied herself by shifting her center of gravity. Her training on storm-tossed ships had taught her balance under danger. A low rumble echoed through the chamber. The third plank trembled, as if alive. Mira pressed forward without hesitation. She bent her knees and moved with slow precision. When she reached the final plank, it tilted downward, threatening to throw her into the void. Instinctively, she dropped to one knee and pushed herself forward. The bridge swayed but held. On the far ledge, Mira stood and looked back at the yawning chasm. Her legs shook, but her face was calm. A soft click sounded behind her. She turned to see a hidden gate sliding open in the wall. Pale symbols glowed around it, marking her success. She stepped forward into the next chamber. It was small and circular, with walls of polished obsidian that reflected her image. In the center lay a pedestal holding two orbs of starlight, one gold, one silver. A voice, soft and clear, filled the room. Choose the light that guides the heart. Mira understood. This was a test of her inner strength. She closed her eyes and remembered her sister's laughter, the sunrise on Earth's horizon, the feel of a hand held in friendship. In her mind, those memories glowed brighter than any star. When she opened her eyes, her hand moved to the gold orb. The orb lifted and melted into her palm like warm liquid light. The silver orb dissolved alongside it, leaving no trace. The room brightened as the walls pulsed with gentle light. A hidden door slid open silently. Mira felt both relief and resolve stirred in her chest. She had faced fear, danger, and the choice of her heart, and she had not wavered. Beyond the doorway lay a torchlit hallway where the air smelled faintly of jasmine. Mira stepped forward, each footfall steady and sure. Above her, the palace seemed to hum with approval. Half the night had gone by, and she had passed 5 trials. Now, only 5 more remained, and the promise of a dawn that could change 2 worlds forever. Mira stepped into a round chamber. The walls were smooth black stone, and overhead a dome of glass showed the stars of Zora's sky. Tiny lights glowed in the ceiling like distant suns. In the center of the room stood a low pedestal holding a crystal sphere. As Mira approached, the sphere lit up and filled the room with soft starlight. A calm voice echoed from nowhere. "Human," it said, "prove your mind. Solve this riddle, and you may continue." On the walls, starlight patterns shifted into words. "I dance without feet. I shine without fire. I travel at dawn and vanish at night. What am I?" Mira read the lines slowly. Her translator repeated each word clearly. She closed her eyes and thought. A dance without feet. Something that moves but has no legs. It shines without fire. It gives light but is not hot. It travels at dawn and vanishes at night. It is here when the sky is bright but gone when it is dark. Her mind ran through Earth stories. She remembered watching sunrise on her home planet. The first light came before the sun rose. She thought of dawn at her sister's farm, when soft gold spread across green fields. She felt a spark in her mind. Light itself could be the answer. Mira opened her eyes and spoke clearly. The answer is light. At once, the crystal sphere pulsed twice, and the walls glowed with silver flames. The riddle dissolved into starlight, and a new pattern formed on the floor. Thin beams of light crossed like paths on a map. Each beam pointed toward a narrow door in the wall. Mira studied the beams. One led to a door carved with wing motifs. Another led to a door with a simple star. She remembered the queen's cloak of feathers and the throne of crystal. She felt sure the wing door was right. She followed the beam, stepping carefully on smooth stone. When she reached the door, it opened silently. Inside lay a small chamber lit by pale blue torches. A bench of polished onyx sat against one wall, and on it rested a simple box sealed with glowing runes. Mira approached and knelt before it. The runes pulsed with soft light. Her translator whispered, "Open with truth." Mira placed both hands on the box and spoke in a clear voice. "I came here to prove my courage and my mind. I seek only understanding and honor." The runes faded away. The lid slid open. Inside was a small key carved from moonstone. It felt cool in her hand and humbly simple. She rose and tucked the key into her pack. As she left the chamber, the door behind her closed without a sound. Ahead, the torchlit hallway stretched toward the heart of the palace. Mira's steps were sure and her mind was steady. She had passed the trial of wit. 4 trials remained, and each brought her closer to sunrise, and to the moment when she would stand before the alien queen once more. Mira stepped through another bronze door into a quiet chamber. The room's walls were white marble, cool to the touch. At the center stood 2 glass cylinders, each holding a faintly glowing creature. One was small and frail, with pale scales and wide, pleading eyes. The other was larger, with dark skin and a broken wing folded awkwardly. Both creatures looked at Mira with silent hope. A gentle voice spoke from the walls. "Show mercy, human. Heal what you can, and prove your heart." Beside the cylinders lay a simple healing kit. It contained a soft cloth, a vial of clear liquid, and a small bandage of woven fibers. Mira knelt before the first cylinder and placed her hand on the cool glass. The small creature hissed softly, but did not pull away. Mira opened the vessel and gently wrapped the cloth around its broken limb. She uncorked the vial and poured a few drops of the liquid onto the cloth. The creature's scales glowed brighter, and its eyes softened. Mira spoke in a calm voice. "You are not alone. I will help you." The creature's scales lost their dull gray and took on a pale blue shimmer. Its tiny claw reached out and touched Mira's finger before it climbed onto a small perch, looking more steady. Her heart warmed at the creature's trust. Yet across the room, the larger creature let out a low groan. Its broken wing trembled. The bandage on the small creature had used half the cloth. Only a few drops of liquid remained. Mira rose and dashed to the second cylinder. The larger creature's eyes were dull with pain. Mira pressed a finger to her lips and whispered, "I will not leave you in pain." She used the last cloth to wrap the broken wing. With trembling hands, she broke off half of the first bandage to cover its wing. Then she tasted the liquid in the vial. It was bitter but safe. She poured the final drops onto the bandage. The larger creature's wing quivered. The broken bones reknit with a soft glow. Its chest rose in a relieved breath. It bowed its head, as if thanking Mira. Mira felt relief. She had used her supplies on both creatures. They both looked stronger now. A soft chime rang through the room. The voice returned. "Your kindness has healed both. You saw need and shared what was precious. You passed the trial of compassion." The cylinders dissolved into light, and the creatures vanished, leaving no trace. A panel in the wall slid open, revealing another bronze door. Mira stood and wiped her brow. Her hands still trembled from fear and effort, but her face was calm. She had chosen to help both, even when her resources were small. That choice, born of compassion, had saved 2 lives. Ahead, the torchlit corridor curved toward the heart of the palace. Only 3 trials remained before dawn. Mira's steps were steady. She felt a quiet confidence in her heart. Compassion, like courage and wit, would guide her through the night. With that thought, she moved forward, ready for the next test under the alien queen's watchful eye. 2 seconds, Mira stepped into a dimly lit chamber. The walls were covered with polished mirrors that reached from floor to ceiling. The pale torches along the sides flickered, sending her own reflections dancing in every direction. The chamber smelled faintly of ozone, like the air before a storm. A calm voice spoke from the shadows. "See yourself, human. Know your truth, and the path will open." Mira looked at her reflections. In one mirror, she saw herself in her flight suit, proud and steady. In another, she saw herself as a frightened child, tears on her cheeks. In a third, she saw herself on the battlefield, determined and strong. Each image moved, as if alive. She stepped closer to the nearest mirror and reached out. Her hand met cool glass. In the reflection, her eyes held both fear and courage. She remembered every trial so far, the chasm, the healing, the puzzle, and the riddles. Each had tested a part of her: courage, compassion, and wit. Mira spoke quietly. I am more than one moment. I carry both fear and hope. I stand here because I choose to face the unknown. The mirror rippled like water at her words. Her reflection changed. Now she saw herself standing beside the alien queen in the grand hall. They stood together, two leaders from different worlds, joining hands in peace. Her heart warmed at the image. Another mirror showed her back on Earth, sharing her story with children who listened with wide eyes. Their faces shone with wonder. Mira felt their hope, and her resolve deepened. She moved through the chamber, touching different mirrors. In each reflection, she saw a lesson: bravery, kindness, wisdom, unity. Each image reminded her of why she had come. She paused before a mirror that showed her alone in the dark, just as she was now. The mirror whispered, "Alone, you are strong. Together, you are stronger." Mira closed her eyes and centered herself. She thought of her crew, her family, and every person who believed in human courage. A soft glow began at her feet and climbed up the mirror's surface. The mirrors hummed with light. When Mira opened her eyes, a hidden door in the far wall stood open. Its frame was carved with intertwined hands, human and alien. She walked toward it, her reflection fading behind her. As she passed through, the chamber's torches dimmed and then went out. For a moment, she was in total darkness. She held her breath, then felt a gentle breeze and saw a soft light ahead. A new corridor lay before her, lined with pale pillars that pulsed with quiet energy. 3 trials remained. Mira's heart beat with calm strength. She understood herself better now. Her fears, her hopes, her purpose. With each step, she carried that understanding forward. The palace seemed to welcome her progress, guiding her toward the final tests. Mira set her shoulders and moved on, ready to face whatever awaited before dawn. Mira walked into a long corridor lit by pale blue torches. The air here felt different, thicker and warmer, like stepping into another world. She noticed the floor was covered with soft, glowing moss that cushioned each step. The walls pulsed gently, as if breathing. A steady voice spoke, "Endure, human. Walk this path until your strength is spent." Mira's brow furrowed. She readied herself and began to walk. At first, the moss felt comforting beneath her boots, but with each step, the warmth grew and the air thickened. Her breathing became heavy. She tightened her grip on her pack and pressed forward. After a few minutes, sweat beaded on her forehead. The torches seemed to flicker faster, and the corridor stretched longer. Mira focused on her breathing, counting each step. 1, 2, 3. She thought of her sister's face and the promise she made to prove human courage. As she walked, the moss began to shift underfoot. It rolled in slow waves, making each step feel unstable. Mira planted her feet firmly and adjusted her balance. The air grew warmer still, and her suit's cooling system whirred loudly. She wiped her brow and pressed on. Halfway down the corridor, the torches dimmed, and the only light came from the moss. Mira slowed her pace. Her legs felt heavy as if made of lead. Her breaths came in short gasps. But she did not stop. She remembered the queen's challenge: to spend one night in the palace. She was so close to proving herself. She straightened her shoulders and lifted her chin. Each step was a choice. Each breath was a victory. When she reached the end of the corridor, the warm air snapped away like a snapped rope. The torches flared bright, and a cool breeze filled the space. Mira gasped and stumbled forward into a small antechamber. A circular door waited ahead, carved with spirals like swirling wind. A voice spoke again. "You have endured. Now rest, for dawn approaches." Mira leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. Her heart pounded, and her legs trembled. She felt both relief and pride. She had walked the endless corridor, fought fatigue, and refused to quit. After a moment, she pushed off the wall and stepped toward the circular door. As she passed through, soft music filled her ears, bright notes like birdsong at sunrise. The door closed behind her, and she found herself back in the grand hall, just as the first light of dawn crept through high windows. The alien queen stood on the dais, her cloak of feathers glowing in the pale morning light. Guards lined the hall in silent respect. Mira's pack felt heavy, but her heart felt light. The queen's voice rang clear. "You have passed 9 trials, human. Only one remains." Mira nodded, her eyes steady. She had endured the dark corridors, faced puzzles, healed creatures, and confronted herself. Now she would meet the final trial. As the halls brightened with the light of dawn, Mira stepped forward, ready to stand before the alien queen and complete her promise. Mira stood before the alien queen at the center of the grand hall. Pale morning light streamed through high windows, painting the black stone in soft gold. The torches along the walls were unlit, their job done. Silence settled over the assembled guards and courtiers as Mira lifted her head to face the queen. The queen wore her cloak of dark feathers, each plume catching the dawn's glow. Her eyes, polished onyx, held a calm curiosity. Behind her, the dais was empty save for the carved crystal throne. Around them, the marble floor gleamed like fresh snow. Mira took a steady breath. In her pack, she held the moonstone key, the gold orb's light, and the healing vial, tokens of her trials. She placed them gently at the queen's feet. The guards shifted but remained silent. "My queen," Mira said, her voice clear and respectful, "I have walked the night by your promise. I have faced fear, solved riddles, healed the wounded, and shown compassion. I have learned your palace's secrets and understood its heart." The queen inclined her head slightly. She reached out with a slender hand and touched the moonstone key. Its light pulsed warmly. She then looked to the empty throne's backrest, her gaze unreadable. "Human," the queen said, her voice soft yet strong. "You have honored every trial. You have shown courage, wit, compassion, and endurance. You have looked into yourself and stood true. You prove that humanity's spirit is worthy of respect." Mira bowed deeply. A murmur of approval rose among the guards. The queen stepped aside. Mira approached the crystal throne and touched its smooth surface. A surge of light ran through her fingertips, filling her with warmth and calm. The queen raised her hand. Pale light gathered at her fingertips and formed a symbol above the throne. A circle of stars encasing 2 clasped hands, one human, one alien. The light floated down and settled into a medallion that hovered before Mira's chest. "You shall bear this symbol as a sign of our alliance," the queen declared. She spoke words in her ancient tongue, and Mira's translator whispered their meaning. "Peace and unity between our peoples." Mira accepted the medallion. It fit against her suit, its warmth a promise of new beginnings. She rose and faced the queen again. "I accept this honor," Mira said softly. "I pledge to carry your message of peace to Earth and beyond." The queen's lips curved in a rare smile. "Go with my trust, human. Let your journey inspire hope. May our worlds walk forward together." As the first rays of Zora's twin suns broke over the horizon, guards sounded low horns in salute. Outside the great gates, ships from Earth and Zara stood side by side. News of the alliance would spread across star lanes like wildfire. Mira turned toward the horizon, the medallion resting against her heart. The dawn sky blazed with promise. Humanity and the people of Zora would stand united. And it all began with one human's courage to spend a single night with the alien queen. With hope shining in her chest, Mira stepped forward, ready to lead a new era among the stars.